Okay, reincarnation and the politics of power. We all know what reincarnation is, I assume, but we're going to go over it a little bit, talk about the background, talk about the belief's popularity, going to give some examples, and then at the end, though, I'm going to make my point. I'm going to show how it's been used to control people politically for a long time. Reincarnation, also known as rebirth or transmigration, is the philosophical or religious concept that the non-physical essence of a living being begins a new life in a different physical form or body after biological death. 33% of Americans believe in reincarnation. The Pew Research Center conducted a study on New Age beliefs and found that 1/3 of Americans believe that they would be reborn in another body after death. Interestingly, they found that women were 1.4 times more likely to hold this belief than men. Reincarnation goes back a long way, and it's not just with Eastern religions. Let's talk about that. It was accepted by Plato and Pythagoras, Greek philosophers, and the Gauls and Germans of Europe, pre-Roman, believed in it. To this day, Hasidic and some Orthodox Jews believe in it. I didn't know that. So Hasidic Jews believe in it. I saw a lecture that a rabbi did the other day, and that's when I first learned that, and it piqued my interest into doing the video. But anyway, Hindus, Buddhists, Taoists, and other Eastern religions believe in it. We all know that. But Christianity, the early Christians, they flirted around with it too, until it was squeezed out and labeled a heresy. Gnostics, Cathars, and Paulicians believed in reincarnation. The Cathars in southern France, they were exterminated. There was a genocide done on them. It's called the Albigensian Crusade. It was the only crusade inflicted upon Christians by Christians. And that's a dark, dark story. But at any rate, that's a brief overview of reincarnation. Now let's go on to some examples. Okay, let's look at some examples here. I picked out 3 of the more famous examples to illustrate the validity of the concept. And, assuming that the events and facts depicted in these cases are correct, I just don't see how anyone can deny the validity of this belief. But at any rate, I'll go over and illustrate some of the cases. A boy named James Leininger, who claimed to be a World War II fighter pilot, reincarnated. He was able to recall details about his previous life, such as the name of his aircraft carrier, the location of his plane crash, and the names of his fellow crew members. There he is right there. There's the little boy, and then there's the guy who was killed at Iwo Jima. Okay, next. Cameron Macaulay, who said she had lived on a Scottish island called Barra in her past life. She was able to describe the island, the house she lived in, and the people she knew there with accuracy. She also had a strong Scottish accent despite growing up in Glasgow. I guess they don't have strong accents there. She was eventually taken to Barra by a researcher and was able to recognize some of the places and people she had talked about. But this last one's what really gets me. A 3-year-old boy in the Golan Heights, that would be by Israel, caused quite a stir when he claimed he was murdered in a past life. The boy was led through several villages to see if any of them were familiar to him. Once he found a familiar village, he claimed that he knew exactly who had killed him. Afterward, the boy led his elders to a pile of stone under which they found a body with an axe wound in its head. He also led them to the spot where the axe was buried, reportedly forcing his killer to confess the crime. So here's a little boy solved his own goddamn murder. I mean, assuming that these facts are correct and that someone's just not pulling your leg, pulling our collective leg here, I just don't see how you can deny that reincarnation is a valid, true belief. Okay, next, the politics of power. Okay, so now let's apply this to Christianity and the politics of power. Because when the government gets involved with religion, it is always about power. I almost said it was almost always. It is always. So anyway, reincarnation was officially removed from Christian doctrine during the Fifth Ecumenical Council in the year 553, also known as the Second Council of Constantinople. The council was evoked by the Emperor Justinian and the Empress Theodora to decide what were to be acceptable Christian beliefs and practices. He even had Pope Vigilius arrested for believing in it. And anyway, the Pope relented on December the 8th, 553, and from that point on, reincarnation became a heresy. There's Justinian and Theodora there. Justinian was a wuss. Theodora ran everything. She's an interesting character in history. Her daddy was a bear trainer and her mama was a dancer and singer. She grew up to be a dancer and singer and a prostitute, and she got her hooks into Justinian, and boy, she pulled the strings. Once there was a really big riot called the Nika riots. Nika means victory in Greek. The goddess Athena had a little owl named Nika, spelled Nike, and means victory. Anyway, they called the Nika riots, and she stepped in and took over and took control and saved Justinian's ass during those riots. And anyway, when this was done, it was almost certainly done because of her. She was, bottled spider would be too kind to call her. Ugh. Anyway, the next time you put on some Nike shoes, no, you're mispronouncing it. But anyway, let's continue. Now think of this. If people believed in reincarnation, in the belief that we continue to learn and grow, they might not be so inclined to give the church their money or allow the state to control them. Think about it. If you think that you're going to go to hell forever and ever and ever unless you obey, you're going to be more inclined to obey. Fear shuts down man's rational thinking. However, if you believed in reincarnation and you felt that maybe, you could continue to grow and learn throughout the ages, the church and the state's power over you would be greatly diminished. Their psychological power over you, the psyop that they created. So anyway, that's the politics of power and how it's inserted into the whole thing. And I was surprised when I discovered this. I did a little research, and sure as shit, there were some tertiary reasons also, probably. Someone might claim to be the reincarnation of Christ or some other figure and challenge the state's power. And that's, that's a valid, I guess, concern on the part of the state. And then I also read that a lot of slaves were committing suicide because they didn't want to be slaves anymore. So they were offing themselves, and it was depriving their owners of valuable revenue and labor. I don't know if that's really true, but I did read that. So anyway, there you have it. There you have it. Religion is usually all about power. Now, that's not to say that there is no God. That's not to say that, there aren't certain moral principles and beliefs to which we should adhere. But when the government starts controlling things, as they invariably do, you're going to have problems. You're going to have repression and injustice, which, of course, we've had since then with inquisitions and burning people alive and Oh my goodness, goes on and on and on. But anyway, if you liked the video and you learned anything, give me a like and subscribe, and I appreciate you hanging on to the end. Thank you very much. Bye.